how do you ask the right questions to get somebody to actually open up to you on the phone is kind of when I see that mind shift switch into terms of like, all right, they're really thinking. Because, if you just start, hey, this is the hire, we're different, yada, yada, yada. But if you can say, hey, what challenges are you facing in the hiring space right now? How hard is it to hire for your team? All of a sudden, they let their guard down a little bit.
Sure.
And then they start getting information, right?
Hello, and welcome to Swimming in the Flood, a podcast where we navigate difficult currents in business and growth. My guest today is Tyler Wentworth. Tyler is the president and founder of The Hire. It's a people-first talent acquisition partner that provides progressive companies with high-touch experience to attract, hire, and engage and retain top performers. He is a graduate of the University of North Carolina in Wilmington with a Bachelor of Science in kinesiology. I said that wrong. In exercise. Tyler, thank you for joining us. And just how flexible are you?
Well, thank you, Trent, for having me. It was pretty close. I've gotten more flexible getting into yoga later in life, so I'm pretty flexible.
What made you choose that as a major?
I think it was I wasn't sure I even wanted to go to college out of high school. High school learning was very challenging for me. After high school, I got into exercise and working out, and all of a sudden, I would just find myself reading over and over, just different. I couldn't get enough information about how the body works, how to get stronger, how to get flexible. And finally, that was the kind of aha moment of, hey, I'm passionate about something enough that I want to go 4 years and learn about it. So that's how I ended up taking that on as a major.
What did you do, like stretching on the lawn? How did you go about training for this?
I saw myself being a strength coach for athletes.
Oh, sure.
That's kind of where I wanted to be. And maybe it was, I had an internship with a strength and conditioning, and we ended up doing a lot of work, not necessarily with athletes. And I found myself more of being a confidant for a lot of older women who just wanted somebody to talk to while they're working out.
That happened to be young and handsome at the same time. Imagine that, Tyler.
So it just ended up, I realized that maybe this isn't the path I wanted to go down. Still was very passionate about it personally, but just didn't see myself spending my whole work career doing that.
So you made a switch over into sales from there. And I've learned one of your sales powers, or superpowers, I should say, is cold calling. Would you say that's right?
I mean, I don't know if anybody has mastered the cold call. I think everybody has a theory on it. I think the goal is to get somebody live, and you have a very short window of being able to connect with somebody when you do talk to them. I know personally, I get a lot of cold calls, and typically I will give somebody, I want to hear their pitch, and I will give somebody a chance to pitch me, whether it's probably about 30 seconds or so. And maybe it is a product I don't need or a service that I don't need, but I always like hearing their pitches, and sometimes I'll give them some advice when they're done. But to me, the art of cold calling is a really kind of, it is a science and a beautiful thing when done correctly. Even when it's done to you at the end, you're like, wow, that was, I was ready to hang up initially, and you've kind of got me engaged now. So what do you got?
I in a similar role as a CFO, I would get dozens and dozens of calls a week, and most of the time they were gone in 5 to 7 seconds. But there was one or two, that might just break through, and You're like, I don't know why I'm on the line. I'm not buying this, but I want to hear how it goes, where it goes.
Probably a decent amount of recruiters would call you too.
Yeah, I did. I had a decent amount of recruiters call me at the same time too. And let's see, well, they 5 to 7 seconds maybe, but tell me, your business, The Hire, how long ago did you start it?
I worked for a big recruiting company, a national $20 billion company called Randstad. I got into this not knowing what I was doing at all, moved down here. My story kind of goes, things had gone kind of poorly for me in my career. Maybe I hadn't taken work as seriously as I needed to at the time. Had to move back home with my parents and had got my car repossessed. This opportunity came up, so I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't know anybody here. I got this opportunity, came down and interviewed, ending up getting the job. And again, I didn't know recruiting firms were out there. I couldn't believe companies paid a third party to find them talent. But hit it off with who would be my manager at the time, and really took a faithful leap that this was going to work out for me. And that first week, waiting to start, I call into the company to talk to my manager, and as I call in, I ask for him, and the receptionist says he's actually no longer with the company.
Oh.
So I had already signed this lease, moved all my stuff down, and also my manager's not there anymore. Luckily, I had interviewed with his bosses up in Boston, and they still wanted me to come and start, but I didn't have a mentor for probably the first 6 months of starting this role.
How did that affect you?
Well, I would say it gave me less confidence that I was going to be successful at this without having, somebody who I thought would be the right person to teach me and guide me along the way of this, this unknown industry to me. Mm-hmm. There was definitely moments of, did I make the right decision? Am I going to make it in this business? Mm-hmm. There was a long stretch of that, I think, where, I moved here in 2012 when the unemployment rate in Rhode Island was, over 10%. We were I think we were the second highest in the country mm-hmm. at the time. So a lot of companies didn't need to hire outside help to find good people because there was such
lying around.
There was such a good amount of people who were unemployed. So, it must have taken me, 6-7 months to bring in my first client. And I do remember, the office was really struggling, Providence in the region. And our boss from Boston came down and basically said, hey, if we don't turn this around, I'm thinking I'm going to close this office. Again, I had really gone all in to get for this job and to move here. So, for me, this is all or nothing. I got to make this work. And we have specific metrics in our business in terms of how many dials, how many phone time to basically kind of the baseline of how to be successful in this business. And I just said, well, I'm going to double those. And because I know I'm not very good at it right now. I don't really know what I'm talking about. We were replacing mostly accounting and finance folks, and I didn't really know, what a controller did or a bookkeeper at that point. So I was reading Accounting 101 for Dummies at night. So at least if I got somebody on the phone, I could fake it enough to.
You knew what an asset was.
I knew what a general ledger was, and debits and credits, and that was about it.
There are a couple of things that you said that are interesting here. So you chose for sales to essentially double the pipeline. So double the start of the funnel to get, because you said it's so narrow at the bottom. My experience is so small. It's not flowing through. I just got to fill that hopper even bigger.
Well, I think I was so bad at closing at that time too, that, I knew that I had to probably get every day. I probably had to get 5 or 6 conversations to maybe get one who would be willing to meet with me in person, where I think more, some of the more seasoned people in the business, they have a much higher ratio of getting in front of somebody off of a phone call.
Sure. So what became the impetus to starting your own business?
Well, we have so much competition in our industry. There are obviously huge global firms who have offices in almost every market. And it's a very competitive internally as well. You get paid off your own production. So there's this weird dynamic of, yes, we're working together, but we're all working individually as well in offices. And really, we didn't have a lot of people that liked each other in our office, in full transparency.
Okay.
And I said, kind of said to myself, I feel like I could build a group that could work together a little bit more cohesively and develop a little bit more chemistry in our office where, we have all these outside competitors. Why are we fighting internally over what I thought to be little trivial things instead of, all right, how do we go out and separate ourselves from the Robert Halfs?
The one of the challenges I'm sure that gets faced, I mean, is you're right. It's a low barrier to entry business, and so now you've brought on. And how large is your staff?
We have about 7 right now.
Okay. And what level of mentorship do you give your new hires that you didn't receive in your first role?
Well, I think the larger companies typically hire recent grads right out of school, and it's kind of that sink or swim mentality where, hey, you have about 6 to 9 months to make it in this business, and if you don't know, we're kind of well aware that the ratio of people who make it is very low.
Sure.
So they hire in volume and without a lot of people having experience in the industry. So what I guess I try to do is deliver confidence early on that you're not going to be out of this business in 6 months if you're not having success. If you're putting in the right work early on, and I can see that you're progressing, I'm going to be here with you until we get this right. I think the hardest thing is trying to find somebody who does look at this differently. It is a very unique industry where you're based off of what you bring in and what you close, and you never want to give up on somebody too early. Where you put that time in and mentorship in to get them ready to be successful, and it is you do in this business. You have that aha moment where you're like, all right, it's getting easier for me now. I figure I've made so many mistakes in the first 6 months that.
Yeah, right.
I think I have a better idea of what works, and it's just really that's what got me into wanting to mentor people and coach people, is seeing them all of a sudden start having success in this business.
You touched on one of the points we talk about quite a bit on the show, which is confidence. And in this role, this new person you hire, I can imagine when they start, their confidence. Well, on day one, their confidence is probably high, because they're feeling good about themselves. By Friday, it's probably a whole lot different. And so you talked about building their confidence, but what exactly do you think you need to do? And is it different for different people? Do you have a schedule for people that they follow? How does that work?
I would say everybody gets there on their own timeline and is a little different. I think we've had people who haven't made it that first week because it's a different animal. When you ask somebody to pick up the phone and call somebody that is not expecting them to call, there are certain people, especially when they're changing industries, right? We place a lot of accounting and finance folks, and sometimes accounting and finance people end up making the best recruiters. But a lot of times, they think, oh, this is going to be great. I'm calling my peers and potential former colleagues about opportunities. But when you ask them to pick up the phone, it is hard. It is hard. So everybody gets there kind of on their own. I think the things you can do is obviously kind of role playing with them initially, and even letting them hear you on the phone and getting hung up on, right? So if they see you, somebody that's been doing this now for 14, 15 years, still have kind of the same rejections and that they're going to have in that first week, gives them a sense, okay, this happens, and it's not a personal reflection on how I did on this phone call. It's just part of the business and the game that we play here.
An interesting way to look at it, I guess. I translate it to a little bit maybe like baseball, right? A 300 hitter is an all-star, right? And you fail 70% of the time. Although I suspect at the beginning these people they're still at double A, maybe hitting 150 or something.
I think they'd be happy with 150.
Right. I think they'd be happy with 150. They'd be doing very well. It is truly a challenge to pick up the phone, smile, and dial over and over and over.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that people have the tendency to want to oversell and overtalk as soon
Mhm.
as they get somebody on the phone. And, when people start to see it's how do you ask the right questions to get somebody to actually open up to you on the phone is kind of when I see that mind shift switch into terms of like, all right, they're really thinking. Because, you know, if you just start, hey, this is the hire, we're different, yada, 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 it's like, okay. But if you can say, hey, what challenges are you facing in the hiring space right now? How hard is it to hire for your team? All of a sudden, they let their guard down a little bit, and
Sure.
then they start giving you some information, right? Like you can't sell if you don't know what obstacles you have to overcome. If
That's
you're
right.
just pitching them, if you just pitch them about us, the first thing they're going to probably ask is, well, what are your fees, right? It comes down to price, and then that's really not what we want to sell on. Because we value our time and our abilities and our uniqueness. So if it's all about price, we're probably not the firm that you want to work with.
There was an adage I've used for many years that is, no one ever listened themselves out of a sale.
But they have talked themselves out of a sale.
Plenty have talked myself out of. And I have to reel it back because I'm in the business of talking, and I have to reel that back when I'm on the phone with somebody and spend a little more time learning. The focus of your business are with accounting and finance professionals. How do you rate character versus competency? Is there a balance, or is one stronger than the other few?
To me, it probably depends on the role a little bit. There are certain positions that require that level of competency and maybe they're working, very siloed. And if they're able to do their job really well, and they don't have to maybe mix with their peer group as much, the competency would probably rate higher. If it's more of maybe an entry level position where we think they have an opportunity to really grow, but they have to build their skill sets, then I would say character ranks higher than competency there.
Sure, sure. Is there such a thing in your business as being overconfident in your skills?
Are you referring to me or candidates?
Not never you, of course not. I was thinking more about the candidate. You have a job and you have a window into
Mm,
which you have to assess people that you're getting paid to do,
yeah.
and part of that assessment is also overconfidence.
We have people that have not gotten the job because they came in there overconfident on
Mm,
their abilities. Some people, yeah, some hiring managers that will bother them, but others I've seen how this person they've moved forward pretty quickly because of their confidence. I mean, it's such a fine line to balance about being overconfident and showing that confidence. And I think that it's almost something you have or you don't. It's a hard skill to perfect, being confident but not overly confident in your abilities.
sure.
I mean, there are people that you just you meet them and there's something about them that you're like, man, this person presents with great confidence, but there's also a humbleness about them that and you just get that sense where some people just come off arrogant, and I don't know that I don't know how you get there. I don't know if it's something you can work on to perfect.
Maybe. Have you ever just disqualified somebody because they were just too arrogant or too smug or something like that?
Probably internally, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've typically let my clients decide on that piece when they interview them, but internally, yeah, there's been some people that I just didn't think would fit the culture I'm trying to build here because of that.
Sure. Sure. Last year, you and I connected on the Rhode Island Young Accountant Network, and you're a volunteer. I think you formed it. Maybe you can tell our audience a little bit what that's about.
I definitely didn't form it. I'm on the board there. I did help create that event that we took part of, but it's a group of people. I mean, specifically, it's for young accountants, but there's also bankers, attorneys, financial advisors in the group who, I think, as it's extremely important to network, especially I feel like especially in this state, but but everywhere where, Rhode Island is so well connected that you're going to meet somebody who knows somebody. I was just talking to a client the other day who, they had got to an interview stage or an offer stage, and then somebody knew somebody who decided, because I think the state's so small, that this person wasn't the right fit for them. And
Interesting.
it's a group that everybody's kind of early on in their career, and hopefully, they are going to get to a point in their life where clients or people come to them and ask them for advice on, hey, who do you use for your banking? Who do you use for your attorney? Who do you use to manage your money? Those type of things. And they want to have those resources, people that they've built relationships with over the last 5 or 10 years, where they can tell a client who's, a trusted partner of theirs to go to somebody else that they feel really comfortable about referring them to. And that's kind of the goal of Ryan.
Sure.
In my opinion, anyway. I know that, we're also trying to promote young accountants, right? I think accounting is obviously you're an accountant, but a very secure job. But sometimes it doesn't get the flash and the sexiness. And so we're trying to get into high schools and try to promote kids to get into an accounting major early on.
That's why I went to accounting, because it's sexy. I went to accounting. I didn't know what I wanted. My mother said, you'll always have a job. Okay, there we go. So I could have signed up for the Army too. So, who is your favorite fictional character?
It's probably James Bond.
Okay. Why is that? Other than you look like you could be a Bond in black tie.
He just was always cool under pressure and was always able to come through in the clutch. And that's kind of, how I pride myself, whether it's in athletics or in crisis in business. I try to always remain somewhat calm, and hopefully I'm always, most of the time, able to come through in clutch moments. And that was
Tyler, that's exactly how I see you. So, folks, Tyler, thank you for joining us. Tyler is the president and CEO of The Hire, based out of Providence, Rhode Island. And for listeners, being a resilient leader, it's challenging. It's tough navigating. But with one tack or another, we can get there together. I appreciate taking the time to listen today. See you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Tyler. Thank you for joining Swimming in the Flood. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and share it with a friend. You can find all of our episodes on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. And you can also find our episodes on my website at TrentThiru.com. I'll see you next time.